Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to Learner Motivation Explained. Learn how to use an LMS to motivate your learners to upskill. In today's presentation, we will join Dr. Alan Partridge, Adobe eLearning Evangelist and lifelong learning addict, for this 1 hour exploration into the power of gamification, incentives, skill guidance, and ease of use to motivate and inspire the people you train to cultivate a learning culture in your organization. I'm Karen Gleason from the eLearning Guild, and I'm the host for this session. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Guild. We are the most trusted source of information, networking, and community for e-learning professionals. As a member-driven organization, the eLearning Guild produces conferences, blended training, ebooks, research reports, Learning Solutions magazine, and our brand new online events, summits and spotlights. Each of the resources the Guild produces is devoted to the idea that the people who know the most about making e-learning successful are the people who produce e-learning every day. Our goal is to create a place where e-learning professionals can share their knowledge, expertise, and ideas to build a better industry and better learning experiences for everyone, because we believe that together we are better. And now let's learn about Adobe Captivate Prime. Dr. Partridge, please.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks to the Guild for this opportunity to share this session with everybody today. I'm going to make a big move as I jump us all over into the presentation space. And so you'll see the room alter its makeup just a little bit, and it'll set up a Q&A pod. But I've also left a discussion pod open down at the bottom. So if you'd like to be able to just have general discussion, you can do that in the bottom on the right-hand side, or if you'd prefer to do kind of formal conversation Q&A, go ahead and put that on the left-hand side, and that will ensure that the folks who are in the room with me today, who are some of the folks from engineering, will be able to jump in and answer your questions specific to the tools in the software. So today's session will be a lot of learning theory, and we'll talk a lot about learner motivation. And then we'll tie that into some practical examples of how you can actually do that with your learning management system. Let me begin with who I am. If we haven't met, that's me. I'm Alan Partridge. I'm an educator. I do all kinds of wild and crazy stuff. My role with Adobe is that I am a senior e-learning evangelist, and I love to spend my time out hiking and climbing the nearby mountains here in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. Um, so I think that this is a very interesting question, this question of learner motivation. What motivates everybody in your organization, or more importantly, when the problem comes, what demotivates everybody? What kinds of things are out there that can help us understand better uh, ways to engage the learners, ways to help the learners think of the environment as a kind of a learning culture, a space in which learning can exist and thrive. And so there are some great answers for that question. And today I'll talk about those, give you some suggestions. I'll eagerly listen to your own thoughts and ideas. And at the same time, we'll then take a look at some ways that you can use your learning management system to implement some suggestions that will help to address some of those kinds of frustrations and problems that can exist sometimes, the disconnect between the things that we all hope that our learners will do and the things that they actually do. So from our perspective, sometimes we look at it sort of like this. I went out, I spent all this money, I spent half my budget, I bought this giant library of training content for my learners, but nobody ever does anything with it. Well, depending on what you're doing, you may be building all of your own content, you may be acquiring all that content, you may be inherited all your content. Maybe you went out and searched really hard and tried to find content that was really relevant to as many different fields in your organization as possible. Maybe you bought 50 libraries and you make your own content, and still, you can bring the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And so one of the frustrations that I hear all the time from folks in learning and development is that it is very difficult to get the majority of trainees to actively self start their own education and training. And it becomes more important with time as we enter into this time period where advanced skills, creative problem solving skills, managerial skills, soft skills, and other kinds of things are more and more relevant for the kinds of business roles that people have today. So it can be a huge frustration. How do you sort of overcome this giant hurdle? And it's not trivial. I mean, it's not trivial to commit to developing giant libraries on your own. And even if it were something that was incredibly simple to do, then add to that the complexity that you obviously, if you create low quality content, then that content is just going to frustrate learners even more. So there are all kinds of problems there. And if we look at that from the flip side, from the perspective of the learner, this guy's sort of giving us that really, oh really look. Uh, you can flip that over and say, okay, they may be saying things like, well, I don't really need the content that you offered. It's not relevant to my particular role or my particular work. Or they could be saying, I think of you as that entity which sends me these mandatory trainings that I've already taken for the past 10 years of my career that I can do by memory, that I know the answers to as A, C, B, B, A, D, that I flip through as fast as humanly possible, or that I complain about frequently. So oftentimes we get that kind of feedback from them. And then finally, this is the dominant response that we hear from trainees, from learners. They say, hey, I have an actual job. You get it, right? I do something for a living. And so that's the kind of perspective that we commonly will see from the learner. There's some other perspectives that we sometimes don't hear from them, but that they actually do have as well. One of them is that they'll often respond by sort of saying, you know what, I have to go to independent conferences to get my training because my field or my job is so specialized that I can't get the kind of training that I need from you here while I'm on the job. And so there are a variety of these kinds of things, but I think that last one is kind of important to note. As I went out over the last couple of years and talked to people about their LMSs, I also talked to people about their LMSs from the perspective of the learners. And the learners were frequently frustrated that they felt like they couldn't get the training from their employer that they thought that they should be getting. And so I think that one of the things that tells us is that it's not that people don't want training, it's that people don't see the opportunity for training. When they see us, most of the time, it's at those annual compliance cycles. It's at those uh, intervals where they have to re-up a certification or where they have to take a compliance course. And so the frequency of their involvement with the training and HR departments is usually an experience that they're not thrilled about, that they feel obligated toward. And that seems to be a part of the frustration. And I think that that plays a fairly significant role. So, what do we hear them asking? We hear them sort of asking these things like, why should I prioritize this? Is it a waste of my time? How is it going to benefit me? All those kind of common complaints. And one of the responses that people will frequently give to that is they'll say, okay, well, you know, great. So what we're going to do is we're going to take an already too long compliance-based training. We're going to go back and add 10 pages to the beginning of it where we'll systematically answer all of these questions, and that will somehow increase learner motivation. But in reality, then on the other end, the learner gets that new piece of content and they say, oh, some new content. And then they read through it and they go, yes, I know this. Yes, I know this. Yes, I know it's required because so so to them, it just becomes an even longer painful experience of compliance. So just answering these questions uh, is not necessarily the solution to motivating the learners. It might be a part of the solution. It may help in some cases, but alone, it's not necessarily the best solution. So let's stop and just sort of reflect on this for just a minute. What is it that motivates you? And I'll encourage you to use the chat pod over on the right-hand side so we can all kind of follow the conversation. What is it that motivates you to do one thing versus another thing, to make a choice? What motivates you to kind of choose, I'm going to do this right now, or I'm going to do that right now? I'll give you guys a moment to answer. And while you do that, I'll kind of look at the conversation that you've been having so far. I see some reinforcement that some of you agree about the things that you've gone through have been similar. Your priorities and your interests, Kurt, are what motivates you. A sense of accomplishment. Excellent, Connie. You can apply the concept to other areas of your life. So it matters to me. Steve points out that money can be a motivator, performance reviews, options in career, etc. Rona mentions the carrot versus the stick. Orville says that feedback motivates me. That's an excellent point. Cindy says it has to be stimulating. The more L&D folks can effectively, proactively market to the questions, the more the learners will want it. Relevant to my interests, to be more efficient in my job, that it's a value add, things that are interesting, things that align to my goals, relevant, immediately applicable, priority, urgency, interest, time efficiency. Excellent. I mean, that's just really a good collection of responses. And I think that you guys are exactly right. These are the kinds of things that absolutely seem to motivate people. And notice how much alignment there is among your answers, how many of you have answers that are fairly similar. Now let's switch directions and let's say the opposite. What kinds of things in your daily experiences demotivate you? What kinds of things kind of tick you off or make you feel resistant, make you feel like, I don't want to do that. I don't have any intention of doing that. I'm not going to do that because they did this. What kinds of things? I'll give you a minute again here to kind of think about that and just throw out some ideas. That's me drinking tea in the background, by the way. Excellent. Lack of respect, no buy-in on the project, lack of communication when I pose a question, a sense of overwhelmingness, too much, interruptions, lack of appropriate information. Wendy wants some tea. It's green tea, Wendy. Forced on me. Busy work that doesn't add value. I have no interest in it. Coming from the HR department. That's scary, Amy, but I mean, I think it bears putting out there. Actions contradict words or statements. Waste of time, redundant, just because someone else thinks it's a good idea. No way to interact, just watching passive MP4s. Irrelevant, not understanding the purpose, not aligned with my job or my development needs, not being able to contribute, told that I have to do something without a good reason, knowing there won't be any follow-up. Nothing will happen as a result of this. That it's one directional. There's no way to respond back. Um, Excellent. Waste of time. Repetitive tasks goes nowhere. Uh, on top, obsolete information or processes. Uh, Told it to be compliant with the law or the regulation. No direct application of my needs. No immediate reward. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And notice how, again, you all are in very close alignment. So today we're looking at 85 people here in the room. And for the most part, everybody is coming up with fairly similar lists of the things that motivate you and the things that demotivate you. I think it's interesting to sort of take a look at this sector, and I'm going to look at it from the viewpoint of a couple of different people out there who have approached this problem of motivation and who've thought about it and described it. One of the more famous folks to talk about this is Daniel Pink, and if you haven't seen Daniel Pink's TED Talk, I encourage you to go ahead and take a look at it. You don't have to jump out and do it right now. It is hyperlinked to the slides, and remember, the slides are available from today's session. I put them in a pod earlier We'll have those available in a pod again here in just a moment. I'm hoping maybe Neil will pull that file share pod so you guys can download this deck if you want. And there you'll find the link to Daniel's thing. You can also just search Daniel Pink at any time, and you'll find, of course, this TED Talk. So what did Pink say that people found so interesting that some 25 million or so people have viewed this TED Talk video? Well, what he found interesting was this, the notion that people have extrinsic motivators and they also have intrinsic motivators. And when you guys responded to the question of what motivates you, you included both of those kinds of motivators. You included extrinsic motivators, which are things like financial incentives or rewards, career incentives, that it meets a KPI, it meets some particular need for your occupation. These are all valid kinds of incentives. So we tend to think of these as sort of the carrot, right? This is what we encourage people to do. Now, the research says that on tasks which are fairly straightforward, on tasks which are within the box, so to speak, so that don't require any kind of creative thinking or problem solving, things that are fairly simple, straightforward processes. Providing a reward, which is a financial incentive or a career related incentive, will suffice and it will motivate people to complete the task. Now, of course, you can also provide um, negative reinforcement. You can say, if you don't do this thing, you're going to be fired. And we do that all the time too. That's the stick, right? The option of saying, okay, you have to have this done by this date, or you're going to be penalized. You're going to get a demerit. You're going to be fired. You're going to, any one of those kinds of things. But when we come to the question of what will actually cause or create a learning culture, what will create long-term sustainable motivation, what will create self-starters that will actually get stuff done, the only quadrant here between external motivation and internal motivation, and between negative stimulus and positive stimulus, is the upper right quadrant. I want to do it, so I will do it. Only when it's internally, intrinsically motivated and when it's positive in nature will we actually get long-term sustainable motivation. So that can be kind of, it's awesome, right? You're like, oh yeah, okay, so now I get it. All I have to do is make sure that they're internally motivated and positive. And then you have that sort of sudden realization, wait a minute. Okay, Dr. Partridge, smarty pants, how am I supposed to make sure that they are internally motivated, and how am I supposed to make sure that it's a positive internal motivation? And so Pink talks to that topic as well and does kind of an interesting take on it. He describes this as autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And he's describing really a 21st century workforce. And I think it's important to understand that. In a not too distant article in Training Magazine, there was an interesting breakdown between uh, training, which is soft skills training, simulation based training, training that centers around 21st century kind of careers, training that is about, managing, training that is about learning to handle sophisticated problem solving, those kind of things. Think about the stuff that you guys do. There's no, I mean, there are guidelines for creating learning content and training content, but there is no hard and fast manual to solve the problems that you encounter in your day-to-day life. Most of us are essentially knowledge workers. We're experts in various fields. We're presented with problems. Often those problems don't have a fixed solution. And then we're asked to figure out how to solve those problems. And that's our workaday world. And that is the workaday world of many of the people that we're training. And wherever that applies, this 21st century reality of autonomy, mastery, and purpose become really important. Now, where it doesn't apply with the sort of concrete skills, do this task in this way, step one, step two, step three, no room for deviation, no need for creative problem solving, then we also know that the opposite, the carrot and the stick approach, work perfectly well. And they're okay. They're an acceptable way to approach it. But as soon as we get into this world, we start to deal with the need for these kinds of things. So Pink proposes this notion that autonomy, the desire to be self-directed, the desire to make your own choices, the desire to be the one who's in control, is an important factor in creating positive intrinsic motivation. Now let's go back to that list that you guys just created. Remember when we were talking about things that motivate you? You included many of these ideas. You want to make the decision yourself. It needs to matter to me. It needs to be important to me. I need to have the time for it and believe that it's worth doing. I need to know the rationale and understand it. So that autonomy is clearly something that we have a consensus on. And then mastery. The notion here that Pink presents is that we have this urge to get better at things. We see this discussed with a number of contemporary 21st century authors where they're describing, the need to dig in deeply, not just in our work lives, but in our personal lives as well. We love to master new things. When we pick up a hobby, we love to get great at that hobby. If we play games, we love to level up. We love to improve our skills in the gameplay experience. So this desire is innate in us to master new areas of expertise. And then finally, Pink says purpose is incredibly important to that 21st century worker. The desire to feel like you're making a meaningful contribution. I remember one person said that a demotivator for them was the feeling that it just wouldn't matter, that whatever I do doesn't matter because nothing is going to come of this. There won't be any ultimate result because I've participated in this experience. So our desire to participate is directly related to our sense of purpose. And we want to make a contribution to something that's meaningful. So some great ideas here from Daniel Pink, and very interesting ones. And as I was reading about Pink and looking at the videos and things, I started thinking, Pink is also not necessarily providing us with something shockingly new. He's just framing it in a new context. There's an interesting article on HR Zone. Again, the article's linked here. Feel free to click it, but please come back to me if you jump away. Um, the article is from HR Zone, and Steve Smith extends this paradigm to talk about it in relationship to Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. And I bet that many of you had jumped to the same kind of conclusion, right? Ultimately, the things that Pink is talking about relate to our sense for a need to belong as a part of a group. Now, if you, for whatever reason, missed basic psych or didn't ever have Maslow's hierarchy, that kind of thing, it's a fairly simple chart which basically suggests that you have to have certain human needs before you can move on to the next one. You have to have a sense of safety and survival before you're ready to concern yourself with things like love and belonging. But once you have personal security and once you've been fed and whatnot, then you are ready to feel like you have belonging and membership to a group. So family, relationships, friendships, and so on become very important to us. Well, group and belonging to a group relates very much to the ideas that you'll see presented in gamification and why people would want to participate in badges and gamification and so on. They all relate to the sense of a need for belonging. Importance, self-importance. You see this sometimes called self-acceptance. That need for personal identity and personal acceptance relates strongly to the kinds of ideas, again, that Pink has expressed when it relates to the concepts of mastery and a desire to master this knowledge and to demonstrate and share the mastery that you have with others. And then finally, that last notion of self-actualization goes to the question of participation because you have a sense of purpose. When we reach that self-actualization level, we're ready to feel like we have a strong purpose and that the things that we do have meaning. So the interesting thing about this article as it relates to Pink is that it gives you a really strong kind of a parallel and a way to see this and map it out and say, hey, you know what? It makes sense for us to invest in this sector, the sector of our trainees and our employees who are 21st century employees, who are operating on a different level and who need these motivations in order to embrace the more complex training that they're going to have to encounter. So that gives us kind of a sense of the motivation. So let me pause for a second to see if there are any thoughts there that you guys have. Do we have Neil or Karen? Do we have any outstanding questions that I should jump in to uh, right off the bat? I
There
see
is.
that Wendy asks.
y-
Oh,
y-
go ahead.
yes, I was just going to direct you to Wendy's question about are there any tips for learner motivation as it relates to providing professional development for faculty?
Excellent question. I think Wendy, the same basic concepts are going to apply because ultimately professional development for faculty is similar, right? I mean, these are skills that you're going to want to acquire, but the same kind of problems are going to be necessary to solve those kind of creative problem-solving skills, et cetera, to be grown. So, excellent question. I see a few requests for the recording. Um, we will, of course, provide the recording. I think we roll them out about 24 hours after the sessions. They're available uh, through our website. And if you go there, we actually have, I think, close to 300 uh, e-seminars available now. So I'm sure Neil or one of the folks in the room will share the URL with a direct link to where you can find the latest and greatest e-seminars. We roll out the upcoming ones, and then we also provide a list of on-demand e-seminars. And usually it takes about a day to get them out and ready for everybody. So to kind of push directly into the question that Wendy is asking, how can you start to actually do some of these things? Because ultimately, what good is the theory unless we have some mechanisms or some methods to actually begin to try and build on this? So uh, the basic idea, remember, is to take these elements, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and attempt to roll out training that helps to motivate the learners because they can clearly see that they're being given autonomy, that they're given an opportunity to prove mastery both to themselves and their peers, and that it has a sense of purpose, that it's accomplishing something that's meaningful, and that they've clearly understood what that purpose is through effective communication. So I made a little list here. This is me. So if you're looking for where did he get this one's just me. This list is, how can you start to do it? Uh, Basically, you can remove barriers to success. You can provide different options. You can provide opportunities for that sense of belonging to grow, and then you can provide opportunities to shine, to show off a little bit. If we look at them one at a time, the barriers to success, removing barriers to success means ease of use and mobile access. It means providing access to the learner anytime, anywhere, so that there's no problem with them getting to the learning and training content, that they can easily acquire it, and that they don't have to worry, am I in a specific location to take this training, or am I doing this in a certain circumstance? It also means clear, concise communication, expectations defined, purpose defined. So it means that when we first introduce them to the possibility of a particular piece of training, we understand that part of what we're doing is giving them a moment of persuasion. We're telling them through the description of that course why that course might be relevant to them. We're giving them search keywords that relate to their specific career, and we're being careful to assure that courses and training are catered to the needs of individual audiences and demographics. We're providing them with a little less stick and a lot more carrot, right? More incentives and fewer kind of punishments. Yes, of course, you want to be able to have reminders. Yes, of course, you ultimately may need to use a stick to get people through that last hoop. But ideally, providing more incentives is going to provide more opportunities and less barriers, fewer barriers. So what about the options? Enable self-selection. right? It's really important that people be able to self-select, and it's meaningless to have them self-select unless there are options available, right? You have to have abundant options and options that are meaningful to them. It's not enough to simply say, I've got one option for team A and one option for team B, if within team A, they really are doing 20 different things. And wherever there's a differentiation in terms of what they're doing, that would be substantial enough to justify an additional option. Providing that additional option is hugely empowering for them. It means that they can decide. And options don't always just mean different course content based on different learning needs. They also mean options for different kinds of delivery. This is trending up. I'm hearing this almost on a weekly basis from people in HR and learning. I want to be able to offer blended learning solutions. I want to be able to offer this either as a virtual course or as an e-learning asynchronous course or as a face-to-face training. So that opportunity to say, I'm going to provide multiple delivery options and allow any of those delivery options to satisfy the requirement can be hugely powerful. And by centering around skills rather than centering around the completion of a fixed learning object, you're going to be able to provide options for your people in terms of what the content is and make it relevant to them, and in terms of how the content is delivered so that it's accessible to them. Again, that goes to removing barriers. And then finally, give appropriate timelines. Give them enough time to accomplish the goal and a good sense of why the timeline is set up the way that it's set up. So, what about opportunities for belonging? That may sound a little touchy-feely, but it's actually critically important. Whether you look at that as a part of understanding the need to develop mastery or the need to demonstrate mastery, or whether you look at that as a part of Maslow's hierarchy and the relationship between that first positive level of a need for love and belonging, in either case, it's a genuine human need, right? And believe it or not, the people who are training are not actually robots. They're actually people. And so they have feelings and they care about things and they want to be a part of a group or a team. Most of us are much happier when we're working with a company where we feel like we're a part of a group striving toward an overall objective. And we're much less happy when we feel like we're a robot being instructed to do things that are meaningless. So it's definitely important to provide those opportunities to build that sense of belonging. And you can do that by providing opportunities to participate, to include yourself in gamification, to see where you sit compared with your peers, to share your experiences with your peers, to give feedback. All of these things provide opportunities to enhance that sense of belonging. And then finally, opportunities to really shine, to celebrate mastery. And again, gamification can be a very powerful tool here because it allows you to show off that you have done well. A skill-centered system can also be a really important part of this because by having skills be the center, you can use skills, one, to communicate what the business needs are and how each individual fits into those business needs by communicating which skills they they should complete in order to meet the needs of the organization. And then finally, that ability to acknowledge positive progress can be aligned to that skill-based solution. Cool. Okay. Um, so some very interesting thoughts here, and I think that they give us kind of a bridge to understanding how we can actually start to implement these ideas. So we started out this session, we were talking about the overall theory and the ideas behind motivation and what motivates people. What motivates learners is what motivates people. It's the same basic idea. Now, I want to bridge to specific application of those techniques that I mentioned inside of a learning management system. So as you probably know, Adobe has recently introduced Adobe Captivate Prime. It is a full-featured learning management system, and Adobe Captivate Prime includes many of the kinds of solutions that I've been describing so far. We do, of course, include a gamification solution, and that's in an effort to help establish that learning culture. We include the gamification in the form of badges so that you can have badges that you award for completion of everything from a course to a learning program to a successful completion of a skill level, and through a leaderboard. And that leaderboard allows you to build communities and have those communities compete in a friendly way for top position in who has achieved the most. But it also gives you additional mechanisms to incentivize your learners. So, from an HR and training perspective, you often find yourself sort of wanting to say, hey, we've got this new piece of training out there. We'd love it if people just took it. If they took it, we know that they'd be excited and they'd share it with their friends and it would take off, right? So you can do things like award 100 gamification points for some new piece of content for the first 50 people to complete that particular course. You can do things like say every time you upskill in a skill that you've been assigned, you're going to get additional gamification points. Now, the reason that that's meaningful, that kind of upskill along things that have been assigned to you, is that it's doing a couple important things. One, just being able to see the skills that you've been assigned as a learner in your learning management system means that you will immediately know what your manager and what the overall organization values for you so that you can see, oh, they think that contract negotiation and international sales strategies are important skills for me to master during the next 6 months. Oh, well, let me check those out. And then you're able to browse and say, okay, well, here's all the skills, here's all the courses that are related to those two topics. Oh, well, here's one that's perfect for me. Or here are three that are not perfect for me, but here's the one that'll really work for me well. Then they can implement that self-selection and choose that particular piece. And then as you introduce the gamification, that individual learner is able to then see how they're doing compared to others on the process of upskilling, on their participation overall in their own training. And it's reinforcing this notion that we value your training, we value your self-improvement. And all of these things, of course, align with the kind of intrinsic motivation, intrinsic motivators that we've discussed. So some interesting approaches come out of the gamification. Now, a couple of thoughts here. One, I recently did an e-seminar on the topic of skills and skills for business alignment. That's a very deep topic. It takes about an hour to explain how you get from the business process of developing an overall business strategy, break that down into competencies and skills, get those skills designed and divided, assign those skills to individual employees, and then deliver that as a solution. So I'm going to ask Avranil if maybe he'll share the link to that seminar in case folks want to be able to see that. In addition to that, I also recently published with eLearning Industry, What's a Stick Without a Carrot? So if you're interested in more information about gamification and learning management, you want to see some thoughts about gamification and the stick and the carrot, the traditions we've had in e-learning, that information is available there as well. So the core notion behind the gamification, of course, is that you can incentivize positive behaviors. You can help people feel motivated. You can encourage them to upskill, to work quickly, and so on. And you can build communities, build those working groups out, and help align those experiences to those communities. So let me jump into Captivate Prime, and I will show you just a quick example. I'm trying to watch my clock because I know that as always, I'm guilty of going slower than I should be, but probably too fast for sensibility. But we'll keep rambling along here quickly. I'm going to show you Captivate Prime. So this is Captivate Prime, and here you can see I'm looking at Captivate Prime, which of course is an online cloud-based solution. I'm looking at the administrative panel. I'm going to do a Julia Childs and just switch over to the learner panel. There in the learner panel, you can see my learner dashboard. And notice that the skills map is on my learner dashboard in the upper right-hand corner. There I can see the skills that I've been assigned. I could click through any one of those to see those skills, see how those skills map to various courses available, and so on. I can also search all of the learning that I'm enrolled in, or I can search the catalog of learning that's been made available to me. And using keywords or just search terms, I can go in and find courses that matter to me and that I'd like to enroll in based on the skills that I've been assigned. Now I can also see the badges that I've earned. I can drill down, look at those badges. I can download those badges because they're in Mozilla Open Badge format. I can also go in and see my gamification progress. By clicking on this link, I jump through to the gamification leaderboard. Here I see the leader line where I can see that I'm way ahead of Pooja Jaising. All I'm saying, clearly way ahead of Pooja Jaising. And then, no, I'm kidding. The Pooja has her own demo space where she's ahead of me. Okay, so you can also see as a learner, you can see all of the elements here, the fast learner, the self-driven learner, the upskilling, all of the things that are awarded gamification points. So again, you're reinforcing this notion that they can do these things in order to earn more gamification points, and they're able to add their own colleagues. So they can actually go in and click on the little add colleagues button, type the name of a close friend or somebody that they want to have a friendly competition with, and that'll add that colleague right up onto the leader line so that they can track their progress against a colleague. So you're building community, you're building up that sense of belonging, you're giving them an opportunity to demonstrate their own mastery, and at the same time, you're providing a sense of purpose because they're aligning to the skill. Now, why is alignment to skill so important? Well, alignment to skill is absolutely critical because in the end, it's all about the success of this joint business venture that you have with everybody else in your company, right? So the ideal here is that the leadership, the senior leadership, comes up with an overall strategy for success. Maybe that strategy involves maybe you're a software company and you're trying to enter into a new field which requires strong proficiency in JavaScript programming. So you need your entire engineering team to upskill in JavaScript programming in a very short order. Well, how do you help understand that that's something that's important? You pass that information down as skill assignments to the teams. You let them know what level you'd like them to achieve by what date. You give them a variety of courses that go into different specialties that they can all take related to JavaScript programming. And then they begin to invest in that actively and see how that's going to map back up all the way to the boardroom. It's going to matter in terms of their evaluation, but it's also going to matter in terms of the business that's developed. It's going to matter in terms of the projects that they're actually going to be doing. It's going to matter, on all these different levels, and everybody in the organization is communicating these messages and this consistent story. So it can be a very, very powerful way to work. And the nice thing from the learning management perspective is that it gives you extra metrics for return on investment measurement. So it provides you this way to report back the success on upskilling right back to the boardroom. And those skills are already aligned to what their strategic goals are. So now they have something that's a measurable outcome. Um, so let me jump back over into the room. And while I jump, I'll ask if there are any outstanding questions while I was doing that. And we'll jump back into the slides and look just at the next section. Any outstanding questions while I jump through here?
Yes, Dr. Partridge. Henry has a question of where can he find more information about skills mapping and how detailed can those definitions be? Can they be sequence, competency-based, and etc.?
Excellent question, Henry. So I mentioned, I think a moment ago, that I have done a more detailed deep dive seminar on the question of skills for business and specifically as it relates to Captivate Prime. So we'll get you that link at the end of today's session to that e-seminar. That's an hour-long seminar. We do include the ability for you to define the skills. You can create them yourself and customize them. They, of course, can be competency based. We don't include competency mapping to skill software as part of Captivate Prime, but you certainly could use a software tool for competency to skill mapping and then draw that out there and bring your definitions across into Captivate Prime. So we've been talking about this, this notion of what's a skill and how important it is to align your courses to those specific skills. For those of you who maybe haven't looked at this in much detail, a skill is a specific learned activity. Trainers often use these sort of competencies and skills to organize the kinds of things that they are training. And by that alignment process, you'll be able to show people, the people who have the money to offer, that the training that you're doing really makes a substantial difference, that it matters. I've included these in here for you because I know that you guys will be able to download the deck and you might want to kind of do a step-by-step. You can, of course, get a free Adobe Captivate Prime account for 30 days and you can jump in and play around with it and explore it. But you'll find that what I've done here is actually walked through how to create a skill. So I show you here where to find the skill in the administrative panel. Then I show you what it's like to actually build out a skill, add a definition. Skills are created with three levels. I think of them as beginning, intermediate, and advanced level. You can put in just one level, or you can put in all three. You can put in as many as you want. Skills can be assigned a badge. And then once those skills are created, those skills can be assigned to whatever groups of learners that you want. And just as you would expect, well, probably better than you would expect, you can take those skills and assign them using Captivate Prime's Smart Enroller. So the Smart Enroller is able to do things like recognize instantly groups, and it does all of that automagically. So when you first load your HR data into Captivate Prime, it finds all of the groups, whether they're people who report to X, or people who have this job description, or people who have this hobby, or people who live in this location, and it just automatically generates groups for all of them. And then those groups become available for everything from course enrollment to skill enrollment, all that kind of stuff. So it's very, very cool. Let's jump. We'll go forward, and then I promise I'll show you what skill development looks like when we come back to that. So we also talked about ease of use and the importance of ease of use, and that's something that Captivate Prime has really attacked head on. The ease of use is amazing in Captivate Prime, and there are several reasons for it. And it's ease of use from the perspective of the learner, as well as from the perspective of the authors and the administrators. And just to give you a kind of a nutshell sense of how that works, every kind of major document file format that eLearning developers told us they wanted to be able to use, and all the major kinds of blended learning, all are combined in Captivate Prime automatically into a single beautiful deliverable course that makes sense and that's easy to go through. It's kind of like a YouTube for e-learning. We use a thing we call the fluidic player, and the fluidic player lets you easily move through the content, and it dynamically adjusts to play back different kinds of content in that player. From the perspective of the e-learning author, you want to use PDF files, we know. You want to use PowerPoint files, we know. You want to use Word docs. You want to use all different kinds of authored e-learning asynchronous content, Storyline, Captivate, Presenter, and so on. And you want to be able to use videos, right? But traditionally, this has been a giant headache for learning developers. What we've done is we've leveraged all of Adobe's like insanely powerful tools for translating files to convert all of that automatically for you. So if you upload a PDF or a PowerPoint or a Word doc, all you have to do is just upload it. And then Prime automatically converts it into an HTML5 file so that it'll play in the mobile devices, it'll play in the HTML5 browsers and so on automatically. In addition to that, we know that people have really been struggling with video. You want video that streams like YouTube. That's what we need. But most of the time, you don't get it. So what we did is that we actually made Prime able to stream this content using state-of-the-art video streaming technology, state-of-the-art, state of the industry, and Prime automatically converts the video for you. So any major video file format is fine. Just upload it the way it is. Prime will automatically convert it on the back end. It rips out 24 copies, optimizes for all the different bandwidths that your learners are going to be on, optimizes for all the different screen sizes that your learners will have, and then just streams it beautifully right back down onto their devices. See, so we've implemented all these technologies on the background from Amazon Web Services, Brightcove streaming services, and Akamai for the distributed network, all state of the art, state of the industry, to ensure that your experience of authoring and your learner's experience of consumption is all just insanely fast, insanely smooth, insanely easy, simplified, simplified, simplified. And that's the idea behind ease of use in Prime. So you can see from a learner's perspective, it's much easier to use because it's organized much more efficiently. It's presented in a clean, uniform way. It's a great interface that makes sense to them. And it's the same interface with no pop-ups or no plugins. It's the same interface whether they're on a web browser or on a mobile device. From an author's perspective, you're just taking the files you already have and uploading them into the solution. Very, very simple to do. And then you don't have to have the headache of I'm messing with video streams and all that kind of perspective. From the administrator's point of view, the major hurdles that we heard from administrators are that they need to be able to create reports, and it takes this insane amount of hurdle jumping to get anybody to generate a report. So we simplified the process of report building, made it in the hands of the managers as well as the administrators, made it so that all you have to do is grab a simple template, make all the modifications that you would ever want to, and you can get yourself beautiful dashboards full of reports, share the dashboards, do all the kinds of things that we're used to doing in a modern workaday environment. So that's that ease of use solution that just makes all of the difference in making sure that everybody's getting a great experience. Again, here I've included a basic walkthrough of how to get up and running and get in that space. And there's also information there for you about how Prime sees things. Now, this is important. It relates again back to this question of motivation. Prime thinks of the world in terms of modules. So those asynchronous e-learning examples, whether they're videos or docs or PowerPoints or anything, it thinks of them as individual modules. That means that you can mix and match. So one of the thoughts you may have had when I said, oh, well, you should create custom different course solutions for different people in your organization. Well, if you've got a lot of work to do, that does not sound appetizing at all, right? But what if you could modify just one or two elements of a course to create a course that's customized for a specific learning group because you've added all the core content that's universal to everybody, and then you went in and added specialized content, just that module of content, to make a new course that's specialized only to that particular group. Well, because Prime is set up to recognize that modules are separate entities from courses, you can do exactly that. You can build multiple courses that are referring back to single modules or to multiple modules, and you can easily set up a solution that works for you. Likewise, you can roll all that into learning programs so that you can ease the process of automation. You can automatically set up your onboarding, set up your managerial training, set up your promotional training, and so forth and so on. All of those things can be fully automated. And again, there's a step-by-step to help you understand how to do that, how to create a module in Prime, how to upload that module, and what you can do when you're actually creating that module and uploading it. You'll notice that when you get to that last step of uploading your module in Prime or building your element in Prime, that we do support blended solutions. So Prime, a course in Prime can receive content in various ways. It can be a typical self-paced module like a video or an e-learning course, or it can be a virtual classroom. And that can be any virtual conferencing software. Of course, we think you should use Adobe Connect because it's awesome, but you can use any virtual conferencing software. You can also schedule your face-to-face classroom sessions, and you can have activity modules that aren't even inside of Prime. So you can actually launch activities outside of Prime from the activity module. So you've got a great opportunity to build blended learning solutions that happen right inside of that overall experience. So really nice, simple kind of solution that provides you the ease of use from the authoring perspective right on through to the administrator. So I'm going to jump over to the screen share, and Karen, I'll ask if we have any additional questions while I'm jumping to the screen share. I want to show you guys what that experience looks like from the learner perspective and from the administrative perspective.
I think we have answered questions. If anyone has any additional, please put them in the Q&A pad so that we can address them. Thanks.
Excellent. So here I am back as the learner, and I'm just going to jump in as the learner into a typical course. And you can see this is the opportunity space where you can describe the course, you can give motivation to the learner for why they might want to take it. Notice that Prime goes a step further. It provides information about which skills are actually satisfied by this course. If there were a badge for this course, the badge would show up over here. It gives them a sense of who wrote the course, what are the modules, how long does it take, and so on. They can then simply go into the course. This is one I've already started, so you can see some of the modules are completed. But for your sake, I'm going to jump in at the very beginning to this particular course. Now I'm jumping into a Captivate module. So here we'll see Prime, and it's launching. I'm going to move my little window over here, and then I'll launch Prime into a full screen window. Um, so this is actually a Captivate module, which is playing its particular piece of content. So I'm hearing audio blasting in my ear as the Captivate module is doing its introduction, and you can probably see the little slides are going through. Notice when I scroll down to the bottom of the screen that you can see at the bottom of the screen you've got a little pause and forward jump to the next module, but you also have a little notepad area. There in the notepad area, I can actually go in and add content like cool sailing, like that, and click add. Now, one of the cooler things about this is that once I've added that node, it instantly goes back and restarts the content so that I'm able to move right back in and consume the rest of the content, whether it's interactive content, video content, you name it. In addition to that, Prime also provides a table of contents that allows me to see the table of contents from my e-learning elements, but also to see the table of contents for the course as a whole. I'm going to use that table of contents now just to jump over to this third module, which happens to be a PowerPoint. Now you can see I've got a PowerPoint up. That PowerPoint I can actually scale and I can see different information about it. One of the nice things about that conversion process is because we've converted it in Prime to HTML5, we're actually able to see the content and to know how much of the content has been consumed. So you can use this as a learning developer to even track how many pages of a Word doc or a PDF they might have actually gone through. Last thing I want to show you is just this little bit over here. I want to show you a little of the reporting. I know that people love to see the reporting. It relates to the way that we do the projects overall. You'll notice that the reporting comes in these blocks that can be either expressed as a 1x1 or as a 1x2. My favorite aspect of the reporting is actually that you can download the reporting as a spreadsheet, and it includes not only the data like you would expect it to, it also includes the chart. So you can simply copy and paste the chart from Excel and move it into the next location. Notice the dashboards are available. You can add as many dashboards as you want. Reports can be seen from administrators and managers. You can subscribe to reports to get emails. And look at how easy it is to just make a report. Just click on that add button, select either custom to do anything that you want at all, or choose from one of the pre-built templates. And those pre-built templates will actually allow you to go through and set up your own report very easily. These are such typical reports, the kinds of things you see all the time. Choose from the states that you want. Choose if you want a secondary access or not. Choose the kind of reports you typically would use, last month, last quarter, quarter to date, year to date, and so on. And then filter it and choose whatever filters are relevant for you in that specific report. Then all you have to do is click save. The report automatically generates and drops right down into your completed project. So I see that the clock on the wall says that I'm guilty of running long as always. I'll pass back to Karen for any final questions and say thanks to everybody.
Great. Before we get to some questions, if you have that pod available with the slides, I know there are a number of people who are interested in downloading your presentation. And
Excellent. So, oh, I'm just popping back over to the Karen, so that folks can
Okay,
see the download is the first file in the file share box.
there we go. So that's where it is, everyone. And there was a question about the configuration of the badges and if it was a completion of the course or it was certain elements in the course were completed. How was that completion? Is that configurable?
Yes, it's configurable. So you can award badges for various things, completion of course, completion of learning program. You can assign a badge for each of those things. You can also assign badges for completion of skills. So you've got, a variety of ways that you can use to trigger a badge. In the courses themselves, you can also trigger it on an instance by instance basis. That's one of my favorite features. So if you, for example, have a spring instance and a summer instance and a fall instance, or you want to offer basically the same course, but you've made some slight modification, you can, have a different badge for that particular instance. Or maybe you want them to repeat and get a different badge for repeating and so on.
Wonderful. And there's another question about the fluidic player. Can it play Vimeo videos?
Excellent question. So Vimeo videos, ultimately a Vimeo video is embedded in a third-party site. So what Prime would do with a third-party site embedded content is you would put the link to the activity, and then that would push through. You also, I believe, can embed Vimeo videos inside Captivate. I've not tested this. I would encourage you to grab a Prime account and try it if you've got Captivate and you've got Prime. Use the embed feature inside of Captivate to embed a Vimeo video, and then publish that, and then publish that to Prime. And theoretically, that would play the Vimeo embedded video inside of Prime, inside of Captivate. Um, Excellent question. I also see a
Uh,
question from Kitty about, is there a survey feedback component? There absolutely is, Kitty. We actually use L1, L2, and L3 feedback. So there's smile sheets essentially right after a course is completed that you can enable or disable and that you can fully customize. And I love the L3 feedback, meaning that a month after the course is completed, the manager of the trainee can be sent a survey question, and in that survey question, the manager is asked, you customize the question, but I always recommend that you ask them, to what extent has the trainee exhibited on the job the skill that they were trained on in this particular course, so that you get great feedback that you can then take back to the boardroom in terms of reporting. Go ahead, Karen.
One more, is there a discussion area?
Excellent question. So we have not yet implemented social learning inside of Prime. We do make our roadmap available to anybody on request, so you can always just send us a roadmap question, and we'll send you the roadmap, or we'll invite you to come have a roadmap discussion with us. It is on the roadmap. It's coming. It's not actually very far away now. We're really excited about the way we're handling social. We've done a lot of research in the area of social. Maybe you've seen the Adobe Learning Dashboard and other kinds of ventures that we've explored. So we think we've got some amazing ideas about ways to facilitate discussion and the like around the question of the social experience, the discussion experience. Great question.
Yeah, very good. I think it was a really engaging webinar today. And there is the presentation down in the lower left-hand corner there. You have that. And if you have any further questions, I think get in touch with Dr. Partridge. I'm sure he'll be happy to help you. And I'd like to thank everyone for sharing their time with us today. If there's any further questions, I think you can follow up with Dr. Partridge. And thanks and have a great day, everyone.